topic. We are working on our series of sewing the proper fit. Sewing the proper fit. So that's what this is, like our third episode in the series. And last week we talked about fabric choices, how to pick the right fabric for your project, the fiber content, as well as colors.
Interfacing too.
Interfacing we talked about.
And those are all about auditioning, you know, giving it a little, doing a couple little tests, and you'll find the right interfacing.
Yes. And we showed you our new knit that we have in stock, as well as a couple new lawns that we have. Just lawn. A couple lawns. And so we're going to continue on today talking about what many of you have. It's so funny.
What?
Why are you laughing?
I had nothing to say.
Oh, that's a lie. It's her lie face. So today we are going to continue on. Many of you have been asking throughout this series, and it's finally here. Dress forms.
Well, we often get questions about dress forms. You know, just smattering of them throughout almost every class we teach or show that we produce. And a lot of sewers were not taught to sew using a dress form. Maybe it's something that's kind of mysterious. And from some of the questions we get, we know that we've got some good information to share with you that'll help kind of clarify, do I need a dress form? If I need a dress form, what kind should I get? And then we'll be also showing you how to use them. Today we're going to just be talking about the basic dress form, and we got a couple little surprises I think you'll enjoy. So I don't know what Jessica is on the agenda. Do we have anything else you want to say first, or any questions from last week that we should clarify or answer before we get going?
Yeah, Marlene says, I want to know if cutting quilter's cotton on the bias would help. Also, would softening it with Coke work like it does with denim?
Okay, so I know some of you are just hellbound on wanting to use quilter's cotton, and I can see that from your questions. And I know people had talked last week, could we soften it with Coca-Cola? Could we wash it quite a few times? Now cut it on the bias. In my opinion, the answer to that is always going to be no. Now, I'm not in your sewing room, and I'm not going to judge you if you use quilter's cotton. I am just telling you from my experience that it is not made for clothing, and it has a specific property to it that makes it harsher and stiffer than what you would like for a proper garment. I like that word proper. I've been watching the Great British Sewing Bee, and I love the way they talk about it, and they're just so, but they have some really good tips on there for home sewers, by the way. But anyway.
That's funny because we've watched a couple British comedies lately, and I really like how they say some things, but it would not be appropriate to say.
Yeah, no. No, on the Sewing Bee, they didn't say any of those things. Although a couple of times when they were having trouble, I'm sure under their breath they might have. But anyways, it's a lovely show. And, you know, they talk about some of the better techniques and what to look for. And I really appreciated some of the things they teach there. But anyways, I don't know how I got off onto that. Just the word proper, right?
Yes, make a proper garment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Out of not quilter's cotton.
Yeah. Okay, so the quilter's cotton thing. If you will do what we talked about last week and test the hand of the quilter's cotton, then in the other hand, test the hand of a lawn or a Pima. And first of all, you'll feel the difference right away. But the drape makes all the difference. And no matter what you do to that quilter's cotton you're going to have to nearly wear it out, which would mean almost destroying it, to get it soft enough to have that same drape and hang. And now you're going to have probably degraded your fabric and your beautiful print. And I get it. For 25 years, I went to the biggest quilt market show in the country, if not the world, in Houston, Texas. It takes place every fall. And I have seen almost, how many quilters' cottons have we seen? And they are seductive and they're beautiful. And there's far more of those available to the consumer, ready to, the quilt shops that are still out there. In Britain, they call them haberdasheries. So,
a proper haberdashery?
Yeah, haberdashery. Anyway, so I don't think you could do it. But there are situations where you can make a little A-line skirt, I imagine, out of quilter's cotton. It's going to wrinkle a little bit, but it's going to have probably the proper body for something like that. And I've seen many of the Islander shirts, that's a short sleeve kind of camp shirt, made out of some quilter's cottons because of the motif. And I've talked about this several times. So you have a fisherman in the family, and he goes to the fly fishing conventions. That's his biggest thing. He would like nothing better than to have a shirt with fish on it, and that's just fine. But as a regular fabric to use or a common rule, I would shy away from it, except for those special circumstances.
Yeah, and Marlene, that makes more sense. I know you've mentioned that before. The reason she is really trying to make this work is her sister brought her back a lot of cotton from Hawaii, but most of it is like the quilter's cotton. But the sister keeps asking her, why haven't you made anything with it yet? And she's trying to figure out. So, like Janet said, if that is something important, you can always make the Islander shirt, or
if you're making for the kids, a little shift dress, sleeveless. But when you start getting into detail and everything, it's just not going to drape as well. So think of things that you could make that are just simple structure, like A-line little shift, A-line little skirt.
Oh yeah, Gertrude said tote bags. You can make a tote bag.
Great for tote bags. Great for those cute little tote bags that make into a backpack. And the kids love those, especially in the summertime. They go to camp or they go to the library. Those are great for that.
Yeah, and I like Gertrude's suggestion of the tote bag, because then it's kind of like a keepsake of the fabric. Maybe something like that would work. Or
how about a quilt?
Make her the shirt, and then she'll know why you haven't.
Well, no, don't do that, because she did that out of the goodness of her heart. It was a
hard.
very sweet thing. And I remember back in the day, my aunts, a couple of times, different aunts went to Hawaii, and they would bring back fabric because they knew I loved fabric. And they would bring back these over-the-top, brilliant colors. And what happens is those look great in Hawaii, but you bring them back to Michigan in October, and they kind of stand out like a sore thumb. I loved them, and I used them because I like bright colors. But Hawaii, things can be a lot more exciting and more tropical looking and fit in. But not in the north, up here in the cold.
Yes. And again, we're giving you the tools to be the most successful at what you're doing. It's not a strong rule and the police are coming to your house and going to arrest you.
Nobody's going to point and laugh at you in the mall.
Do what makes you happy. Do what makes your sister happy, if that makes you happy, or at least makes you not feel guilty anymore. But again, we're just giving you the tools.
But there are lots of craft projects too. So
yes.
Whatever. Anyway, I hate to burst your bubble. What else?
So no more questions there. Some more suggestions for Marlene there. People have given, so maybe it gets the wheels spinning.
Yeah, get your imagination going. But yeah, you got to make something out of it. Your sister did that and brought it to you. Make something.
Oh yeah, so Carol said she just actually brought some fabric back from Hawaii this weekend. Okay, Carol.
How was the weather?
It's gonna snow here, maybe. She said she bought some fat quarters and used them to make those bowl cozies.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Somebody made me a couple of those.
But she did buy fabric for
those.
garments, too. Gertrude said, I made myself a wallet, purse, duffel bags. She's addicted now. And while you were talking, we talked a little bit about this last week. When you said, like, the linen-like. And they said, why does it say that? Why do they say that?
They're trying to
fool you a little bit.
Oh, it's absolutely.
I know. I don't want to be mean. So I go to Hobby Lobby, and I'm looking for home stuff. I'm not looking for fabric, but of course, fabric. I go over there. I'm looking at the fabric, and I see, they have like the signs.
Mm-hmm, the little sign
with the
holders.
Yep. Cotton, quilters cotton, and then I see this sign that says, and I'm looking through the quilters cotton because I have stuff I can use it for, and it's pretty and it's nice to look at. And then I see the sign that says apparel fabric. I'm like, oh, they have apparel fabric? I usually only see like quilters cotton here. So I go over to where it says apparel fabric, and it's quilters cotton. It's like
no difference.
There's no difference. I think that the difference was the prints. The prints were more
conducive to fashion.
Something that you would see in a blouse or something. That's the only thing that I could think, because I'm looking at the bolt end and I look at the quilters cotton bolt and I'm like, this is the same.
They didn't put the sign in the wrong place? Oh, okay. Well, that's it. And you know what? A lot of the people in the basic Joann's or even some of the, different stores that carry fabrics, they are almost never well-educated sewers. Sometimes they don't sew at all. And so to them, they don't know any different anyway. So, not their fault, but they really can't give you the proper direction like you could if you went to a better fabric store, which there are very few of those left in the country.
Yes. So somebody had a question from last week.
Okay.
Genevieve. Last week you talked about the hot dog interfacing. It's used for what? I don't remember. Oh, the hot dog interfacing. Yes. The interfacing you don't want to buy. The interfacing where they take all the stuff and they press it together. And I was like a hot dog. Oh, okay. I totally forgot about that.
What did she say?
What's it used for?
Oh, well, people use it for crafts and garments because that's what they sell it for. And once again, and I think you find this in any persuasion, there are items for sale that you could buy that aren't very successful for whatever, whether it's cooking or cleaning or any other kind of hobby. There's always somebody out there selling you something and saying it's great, and if you don't know any better, you buy it. But lots of people buy it in the Joann's stores, and
I really hope that becomes a thing.
A hot dog?
Hot dog interfacing.
Hot dog interfacing.
I forgot about that. It took me a minute. I really hope that becomes a thing.
Okay.
Hot dog interfacing.
Yeah. But you can well imagine, it's just, you'll look at it. You go into Joann's, you'll see it. If you look close at it, you'll see it's just fibers just sort of melded together with some kind of glue. It's not woven. So it doesn't have the properties of a woven or a knit. So it can't mimic those. And when you put interfacing in a fabric, you don't want to drastically change the texture or the properties of that fabric. You just want to give it a little extra structure or support. And when you put something that isn't woven or knit, it doesn't act the same way. That's, I guess, all I could say about it.
Okay, so I'm not crazy. Becky says, I saw the same sign and thought the same thing. And she's like, it's not apparel fabric. And she's in Georgia.
So maybe,
it was just the same fabric, right, Becky?
Was this at Michael's or
Hobby Lobby?
Hobby Lobby. Well, again, it's not like they specialize in fashion or apparel anyway. No. They're more hobby.
Well, Becky and I knew.
Yeah, you and Becky knew. So,
although it did make me, I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
But yes. All right. So Becky confirms. It's just the same. Same, just a different prints.
Well, they might have fooled somebody.
Like it didn't have like the coffee cups or the,
right.
the more
crafty looking.
Right.
It had like maybe little flowers or stripes or stuff like
it's that. Something that I would.
So somebody decided this is the apparel collection and this is the quilters collection, but it's the same exact fabric with a different print. Yeah, that doesn't work. But nice try.
Okay. Yep. Okay. It's very interesting. But I did get a lot of stuff from my house, though, in case anybody was wondering. No, she doesn't care.
I wasn't wondering.
Ever. So we are going to start talking about dress forms.
Okay. So, are you getting another question? Okay. So, I did not use a dress form when I was learning to sew at all. And you certainly don't absolutely have to have a dress form. But, again, this is about our sewing for a proper fit. If you want to get that proper fit, which you seldom see today, and when you see somebody with a well-fitted garment on, they stick out. You can tell. When I was a kid, it was the opposite. When you saw somebody with an ill-fitting garment, you could tell. Because more people fashioned their own garments 50 years ago. And not so much today. And we have settled in our society for ready-to-wear. Well, what does that mean? Well, you go in and you find the thing that fits you the best. And sometimes you find something that fits excellent. But more often than not, tell me if I'm wrong, you're settling. You're settling. It's a little too short. It's a little short-waisted, but if I pull it down and put a belt on, it'll look okay. That kind of thing.
It fits in my bust, but it's baggy in the belly.
Yes. Yeah. And if you are not an hourglass shape, the same thing happens in ready-to-wear that happens in sewing, is that it's going to fit you one place and not the other. And depending on the style, you can get away with it. So let's say that you need a bigger bust, but your hips aren't that big. Well, if you get a shirtwaist dress with a full skirt on it, there's no fit to the hips, so it doesn't matter. And so you can get the bust fit and you're good to go. But many of us have other issues. One shoulder lower than the other, a rounded back, one hip higher, a larger bicep than a pattern normally allows. All these different things that happen to us as we age mostly. But some of us, they come right out of the womb with a little bit of a different body shape and you need that help. Or maybe there's been an illness that's caused changes in your body shape. All those things come into play and now you want garments that fit well and hang well. How do you do that? Well, you try to do it on yourself. You can't see yourself from the back. You can barely see yourself from the side. Even if you did possess a three-way mirror, you'd still have a hard time measuring and pinning that fit to get that hem to hang right in the back. All the different things that you don't know because you can't get there. So if you have a live-in sewing partner, you're good to go. They'll help you out. But most of us don't have that. And many women tell me, oh, I got my husband to measure me. That was a mistake for many reasons. But it's just not, he doesn't get it, so he's not that helpful. So a dress form really comes into play. Now, the people that use dress forms the most are people that sew for other people. They do custom work. Or they're fashion designers. And they're designing on the dress form. And any of you who have seen some of the reality shows like Project Runway have seen that they work with that dress form throughout the whole project. You don't see anybody not using the dress form. Well, they're sewing for a model, and they need to adjust the dress form first for a fit, and then they can fit the garment on that dress form, and then when that model walks in, they know that it's most likely going to fit that model. So, dress forms. Dress forms can be, they could be at several different price ranges. But what I want to caution you about is the lowest price range is usually not the best. Now, that doesn't mean you can't find a used dress form or get a bargain deal someplace that would be good for you. However, the cheapest dress form you can find is what's called an adjustable dress form. And you may have seen them. They're usually like a dark gray, and they have joints in them with little knobs on them so that you can expand or contract the waist, the hips, the bust. Well, what's wrong with those is, first of all, most people I know that have had them, after not too long of having them, a year or two, those little dials freeze up and they don't work anymore.
I've never seen one that worked properly.
Yeah.
I mean, not that they don't when you get them, but I'm just saying everyone that I've ever come in contact with is...
It's not working.
New style.
Yes. And they're extremely lightweight, and they're on a very flimsy stand. So they don't stay up easily. They wobble and they fall over easily. So you're trying to work on them. They become an irritant. And they're not pinnable. And I'm going to talk to you about why you want your dress form to be pinnable. So let's start out with some of the basics that you need in a dress form and some of the different options that you may want to look for. So one of the best things about a dress form, I'll just use this old one right here for a minute, is that it keeps everything symmetrical for you. So you've got a center front line right here. So when you're putting your shirt, your blouse, or your dress on here, you want to make sure everything lines up on the center front. You know on your pattern you have a center front line. Always on a bodice pattern, there should be a center front line. And so this is where that should end up. So if you're making a fitting muslin, you draw that right on the muslin, and then you set it on the form to make sure that it's going to line up right there. It also has lines over the bust, which are called princess lines. And that's also very helpful for lining up, particularly blazers or suit jackets or any princess line top. That princess line will help you stay on track because the princess line should go right over the apex of the bust. And if it's off a little bit, the whole fit goes off. So it's a key component to fitting, but it has to be in the right place. So this will help you stay on track. It also already has the waist measured, and this one it's got a piece of off-white twill. We've got some here that have black there, but in any case, that's in place for you. Then if you turn to the side, your side seam is right here. So again, when you lay that garment on, put it on your dress form, that side seam should be hanging straight, and it should be approximately right here within a fraction of an inch. So you know that you may be, if it's not sitting there, let's say that side seam ends up back here. That means your front might be too big or your back is too small in your pattern piece. And then when we spin this around to the back, again, it continues those princess seams across to the back, and it also gives us our center back seam. Again, a very, very important thing so that your garment hangs properly, hangs straight. So when you put a garment on, it should hang straight from the side seams. It should hang straight from the front seam. And if it doesn't, then there might be an issue. Now, remember I talked about the Great British Sewing Bee. I thought it was so interesting. They had them make a jacket the other day, and one of the judges, a tailor, he said he could see there was a problem. And it was because the model, when you looked at the model, his one shoulder was quite a bit shorter than the other shoulder. And the sewer didn't notice that, so they didn't change the design. But if you knew that in a draft, you would work that into your form so you made sure. Because what happened with this man's jacket, because one shoulder is shorter than the other, the minute he unbuttoned his jacket, the side with the shorter shoulder just laid over to the side. It wouldn't hang straight from the body anymore because of that. So you're going to keep everything level, and that's what a dress form can do for you. They're usually on a casters of some type, and most of the ones I have are on 4 casters, and they kind of have 4 legs that spread out, and that keeps them fairly steady so that you can work with them and spin them around, but they're not so loose that they're going to fall over on you. That's the thing that happens with those plastic ones that you can't pin into. So if we were going to drape a garment on here and it wasn't all together, maybe it's just the front of the garment, we would want to just pin it on here. And as you can see, these pins will go right in here. So I have pins, and I can just set things on there. Let me see if I've got something I can put up there. I did, but I didn't take it all the way apart. Okay, I got a lot of things in progress, but nothing I can put up there. Anyway, so, but sometimes maybe it's just the front. It's got a certain motif on it, and you want to make sure you get it centered right. You could just set your fabric up there, pin it, mark your different areas so that you make sure that you get that just the way you want it. But that's for a little bit fussier work, just to get a good fit and to help you make a garment, not even necessarily design it, just make it so it fits you, is having a great dress form. The ones I like the best are a solid body with a padding on the outside. That's what these are. I have one that was given to me many years ago that is less expensive, and this one is made of styrofoam. And the thing about this one is that the cover on it is a little too loose, and so it's not staying in place exactly. Like this is slid over to the side. It should be over here. So this is kind of stretched out over the years. And I'm not a really big fan of the styrofoam. It's a little too lightweight.
But also when you think about styrofoam, if you had a piece of styrofoam and you poked it a bunch of times with a pin,
you're going to degrade it.
And you're usually putting your pins in the same spot a lot of the times. You know, you have your common spots that you're going to be pinning stuff.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. Now, these also, you want to look for the stand, because many of the stands are adjustable, so you can raise them up and down. Because maybe you want to work on the hem, so you want it up high, so you're not having to lay on the floor to work on it. Or maybe you're short like I am, and you want to bring it down so you can actually aren't working up in the air. Okay. Other aspects that are to look for in a dress form. Now this is a man's form.
Yes, Fred was asking about men's.
This is the men's form. They're nowhere near as complicated as women's forms, as for obvious reasons. We don't need a lot of the options. You can get dress forms that are half body or full body. Full body forms actually, I've got a new one here. This is the men's, and you can get a full body men's too with the legs, or basically like that. With the women's, there's a few more options. Now this is like the Deluxe dress form. Okay. And it has a very substantial stand on it. This thing is never going to fall over. It also has, yeah, you can take a look at that. It has locking casters as well. So this guy, you can just spin her around on here. There's several options for height. But what she has on this one is an arm. Now, I've got another one where the arm just ties on and it just doesn't really sit there right. This one actually clips right on. It's got a little clip. And if you don't have the arm on, 2 of these come with it that just kind of give you a little bit of a shoulder there for shaping your sleeve if you don't need the full arm. But they also the shoulders collapse. So if you're making a garment that's difficult to get over the body, you can just collapse the shoulders and get that garment over the top. So that's another thing you might want to look for is the collapsible shoulders. This would be considered the top of the line or the deluxe dress form. It's got all the things I told you about, really nice shaping lines, beautiful cover, a great area to show you exactly where the waist is. So, do we have any questions so far, Jess?
Just questions I know you're already going to get to.
Okay. So, now.
So, I know there's questions in there. I'm not ignoring you. I just know she's going to get to it.
Okay. So, what we know is that most of you out there, and I can see you, don't look like this. We don't look like that. We wish we did, but we don't. So all of these are based the same as our patterns, and the same as all the patterns Ready to Wear is made on. They're all based on an hourglass figure. So what we have to do is decide how are we going to get this dress form to fit us. Well, the best recipe for that is to purchase the dress form that's smaller than you are. Now, you know you. Are you a person who gains and loses 10 pounds consistently? Or are you a person who stays at the same weight, but you've got a few issues because you've maybe aged and you've got a little tummy or a little extra in the behind, whatever it might be, and you know this isn't going to be you. You want to make this dress form into you. So you get the size, like I said, that's smaller. So let's say that you're a 14-16 by 12 dress form. Then start measuring to pad it up to be your measurements. But be very, very careful when you do that. So what we want to remember, and what all pattern drafters know, but not all sewers know, is that the body is split in half when you go to do that measurement. So let's say that the hip on this is 38 and you're a 44. You don't just wrap a bunch of padding around here until the tape measure reaches 44 and think that you're going to make a skirt that's going to hang right on your body, because it's not. Because chances are you're not exactly 22 from side seam to side seam in the front and exactly 22 from side seam to side seam in the back, right? Are you with me? So you've got to measure, and that's what you want to do on the human body, is find the center of the side and measure from the center of your side to the other center of your side. That's your front measurement. Then take your back measurement. Then you know how much to pad this up in the front and how much to pad it in the back. You also can take a good look at the body that you're padding it for and kind of see where that extra is. Maybe it's hanging a little lower, maybe it's a lot higher. Wherever it might be, you're going to pad that. Now you can pad these with batting. Just the batting you buy at the quilt store or the Joann's, and wrap it on until you get the right dimension and shape you want. Then you purchase or make a stretch cover to go over it to hold all that padding in place so it's still a smooth body. You don't want all those lumps and bumps. So you could do that. You would do the same thing with the bust if you needed to build that bust up. And one thing that a lot of people I've seen do is they used a bra, a well-fitting bra that they would normally style, they would normally wear, and they put it on the dress form and they pad the bust up to fill that bra. So that's how you could do the bra. Now, where's the one? Oh, I think here. I think you guys have seen this one recently. And this is one that I padded for myself just to accommodate a little more rounding to the back. And that happens to a lot of people. The pad I used here, I think, is a thigh pad. And you can buy pads where you buy your dress form usually. And they're just here's one, just the foam. And they come in different sizes and shapes. You don't have to use them for what they say they're for. But, you know, here's a shoulder. Now that one would be good for the shoulder. Remember the guy with the higher and lower shoulder? You could build up the one shoulder to show that this one was lower, whatever. But anyways, you have lots of different stomach pads and hip pads and thigh pads and arm pads, or you can make your own. It's not that complicated to get some foam or to get some, this is a stomach pad. So if you got a tummy, then you'd be laying this here. But if your tummy is way down here, you want it down here. If your tummy's high, then you want it up here. So it just, you've got to take a good look at the shape that you're trying to recreate with your dress form. Now, because you padded it, and all of a sudden you went on the latest diet and you lost 15 pounds, you can strip some of that padding away because you got that dress form smaller than you needed it. And I think that is really the best recipe of anything I've ever heard of, is to do it that way. The other thing that you want to always keep in mind, and this isn't as easy to recreate, let's say that you're long-waisted. So that would be from here to here. And let's say that you are longer than that. You've got to build that into your design. It's not going to sit on your dress form right because there's no way of separating this waistline and taking this dress form apart. So that's one of the few. Sleeve length might be another one that you can't completely control with a dress form. But this, what I'm talking about right now, would be just how to take a pattern and put it on the dress form and get it to fit your body and know it's going to fit you back and front by using the dress form that's shaped like you. But you can also design on the dress form. And that's what you would have seen if you've watched some of the reality fashion shows. And we're going to get into that later on. But on they use a narrow tape, which is also available where you buy your dress forms usually. And you can create design lines. Let's say you wanted a V-neck here, that you could design. Oh, I'm not going to do that. My tape's a little dried out. But anyway, you would create it so you could get that shape. And maybe the pattern didn't have a V-neck, it had a scoop neck, and you create the V-neck, and then you can trace that line down onto the pattern and know that it's going to fit.
Okay, so Sandra is wondering, as far as like padding it up, what if you have an opposite problem and you have a very small bust?
You got to start with the smallest bust dress form and pad up the hips so like if you've got a 32A but you got a 40-inch hip, you're going to have to buy that smaller dress form and then pad up the hip. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. All right. Now, there are lots of companies that sell dress forms, and some are better than others. And, before I get into the dress form company, do we want to talk about Mythbuster number 12? Nobody's asked that.
Nobody's asked, which I was very surprised. Maybe because they've heard us talk about it enough. But now you brought it up, so we can't leave them hanging.
Okay.
Anyway.
So Mythbuster number 12 talks about why you don't want to make your own dress form. So for many years, there were people that traveled the show circuits, the sewing expos, and of course Jessica and I produced one for many years. And we would have teachers come in and they would teach it. And we thought, oh, that's cool. That's cool. You get to make your own dress form. And they what they would do is get that stripped down to their underwear, put a plastic bag over their body, and then tape themselves up with duct tape to try.
So you can't breathe.
So you can't. We had people pass out actually. So that's one of the reasons I wouldn't do it. But then they would try to recreate their body shape that way. The problem is that it really wasn't that great, and it's ugly as sin. It's just, if you ever saw one, you're just like, I don't want that hanging in my studio. It's like, it's really bad. Well, they're not pinnable. In most cases, they're not pinnable at all. Then, after you go to all this trouble, it takes you a whole day just to cast yourself. Then you got to go home and put it all together. Then you've got to find some way of hanging it on a rod or creating a rod with a caster system and everything else, and getting it to be as nice as a professional dress form just isn't going to ever happen.
Yeah, Marlene says, duct tape doubles are a waste of time and tape. Ask me how I know. And I think that's just one of those things, just don't, it's such a great idea in theory.
Yeah.
So even when we first heard about it, it was like, oh, then you get your exact shape. But then we saw people literally passing out, and then you got to get it off.
And they didn't always get their exact shape.
And then you got to get back together. You can't do the padding, you can't do the pinning. It's just a lot of time. And maybe tape doesn't cost that much, but we don't want to waste tape.
Yeah. And like I said, you don't have to have your exact size. So, you know, if you're on a really tight budget, go on to Craigslist, go on to some of the places where you might be able to, or estate sales or whatever, find a quality used dress form. But we talked to our good friends at French European, and this is their latest, and it is, like I said, it is fabulous with the removable arm. It's got the full legs, but they have the half bodies too. They have the full bodies, half bodies. You can build it up.
They have like everything a la carte, so you can add the arm,
the legs, the padding.
They have the padding. They have the stretchable form, so when you pad it up, you could put the spandex form over it. The cover. Mm-hmm. To keep all that stuff in place, so you don't have to worry about dealing with that. They have the tape.
Yeah.
I mean, they got it all.
Yeah, they're strictly all about dress form designing. Actually, they provide the dress forms for a lot of TV shows like Dancing with the Stars. And so they've really, this is their latest and greatest, and they've really developed the very best working in Hollywood and everything. So we're really, really happy with this one. And like I said, this is a French European, but that man's and the padded in the back one, the half forms, those are French European too. And they're very, very nice. They'll last you a lifetime. You don't ever have to replace it. So when we talked to the people at French European and we asked them a few questions, you know, we're going to do this event and to get a proper fit and everything. Jessica's worked with Joe, and you can tell him what Joe said.
Well, I will say Brenda, the Spenda, has asked maybe you could get us a deal. Of course. Joe is such a nice guy. He's great to work with, and he has offered from their website on the dress forms a 35% discount. And I will put the link to the website in the comments, and you're going to use the code FRENCH35. Capital F in French 35, as in French European dress forms at 35% off.
Yeah, we were really thrilled that he was going to offer that to us. So it's FrenchEuropeanInc.com, and Jessica's going to put it in along with what the code would be. Now, like she said, you can go on there and you can build your dress form. You can say, I want legs, I don't want legs, I want an arm, I don't want an arm, I want collapsible shoulders, I want the cover, I want the pads, or whatever. So it's as little or as much as you would like to get. So if you're in the market and you think that this is the time for you, then this is a really good deal at 35% off. I don't know that there was any other questions, anything else that you'd like to know that I might be able to answer.
Now, I will say we don't have experience with this, but some people had asked some questions about the different shapes of the body and stuff like that, what to do with it. And Joe does offer the custom dress forms as well.
He will do a custom dress form to your measurements. So let's say, remember what I was talking about, maybe you're a little bit longer or shorter waisted. Those are the kind of things we can't change in a dress form. So if you have a more unusual shape, you know what I'm talking about. It might not even be obvious to us, but you know when you go to make or buy clothes that you are not the normal shape, or the, let's not call it normal, let's call it the common or average. So if you know that, then maybe you want to look into, and I didn't look into what the prices were or anything, but if you want to look into the custom, I think the 35% works on any of the forms. So that might be also something. If you really feel that you are like, oh, you're 6'2", you probably need one. I don't know. And as for Joe, if you do need to ask questions about a dress form, Joe is a fabulous wealth of information about the dress form. Actually, he designed this latest one and worked with the fabricators and everything.
Yeah, and we have already had a few comments before we even got to these about how people had gotten their forms from Joe. So I know that there are some good stories out there, good reputation on that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if you have any questions on those dress forms, like Janet said, there are a lot out there. This is the one that we definitely can recommend to you. We know that they have good customer service and a good quality product, and we can get a hold of them if you can't. And a good discount.
Yeah, an excellent discount, 35. So we're really pleased that Joe offered that, and we hope that any of you are in the market will take a look at his site and use that code. Don't forget that code. We have another exciting piece of news. Next week we're going to continue our series on sewing a proper fit, and I think you'll enjoy that. We're gonna. I don't have my agenda in front of me, so I better not say.
Who knows if you'll be ready anyway.
Yeah.
We're talking about fitting a muslin.
Oh, yep. Yep. So let's talk about muslin. And a lot of sewers don't ever mock up a muslin. In Great Britain, they call them a toile. They don't call them a muslin.
A proper toile.
A proper toile. Anyway, but I didn't for many, many years use muslin, and now can't do without it. And once you understand, you don't have to make the whole doggone garment. I used to say, well, why would I want to make that garment twice? I only want to make it once. Well, you don't really make it twice. You just throw some shoulder seams in or whatever, the minimal amount of construction and pieces just to make sure you're getting that proper fit. So we'll talk more about muslins and
how to make a muslin without making the whole garment.
Yeah.
Still, sometimes it's a necessary. I wouldn't call it a necessary evil, but
it's a necessary chore.
A necessary chore.
And it doesn't add time. First you think, oh, it just adds time. I only have so much time to make a project, and now you want me to make a muslin that's going to add another,
hey,
day.
Save it for next week.
All right.
All right, so feel free to email us if you have any questions about what we talked about today, islandersewing@comcast.net. If you have questions on the dress forms or the New York trip, and we'll see you in a week.
Yeah, Christy's a great source for answering your questions about the trip, but I'll be happy to field any questions that I can as well. So I look forward to seeing you next week at Islander Sewing Systems. Tuesdays at 2.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.